Joyce was the kind of girl who turned heads as she walked across campus. Slender and dark-skinned with bright eyes that shone with ambition, she was one of the top students in sociology at the University of Benin. But her striking beauty outshone even her grades. Classmates whispered that she was destined to marry a senator, or at least some oil mogul. She had a confidence that drew people in, and a smile that made them stay. Yet behind that poise lay a growing discontent. She was tired of struggling for bus fare, tired of owing fees, tired of cooking noodles on a hot plate while others flaunted KFC and chicken laps on Instagram. It was in this mood that Joyce began to entertain the attention of two men who seemed polar opposites. Daniel was a fellowship boy, tall and unassuming, always carrying a Bible and offering to help her with assignments. He spoke of God's plans for her life, of moral boundaries, of patient love. But he had nothing to show materially, just a creased backpack and second-hand shoes. Kelvin, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of money and charm. He wore gold chains that glittered in the sun and pulled up to campus in a black Mercedes-Benz. He bought drinks for entire tables, posted endless stacks of cash on Snapchat, and winked at Joyce in a way that said he could give her the world. When he approached her one afternoon with his signature grin and offered to take her out of this poverty, something in her heart fluttered, half fear, half desire. Her friends didn't help matters. Joyce, I beg leave that SU boy. Ngozi had snorted when Joyce once mentioned Daniel's text message. You want chop Bible. You dey craze. No Kelvin be the real deal. Men dey hustle, you dey fear. I beg enjoy yourself, dear. Even those who pretended to be neutral would smile knowingly when they saw Kelvin's car waiting by the gate. And so the choice slowly, but surely, made itself. One Friday, when Kelvin sent her 50,000 naira just to look good for their date, she blocked Daniel's number. She deleted his verses about narrow paths and righteous love. She told herself she deserved nice things, that poverty was the real evil. She didn't know she had just signed a contract with something far darker than hunger. Joyce's first date with Kelvin was nothing like the cheap eateries she was used to. He took her to a fancy rooftop lounge with a view of the city skyline, where music paused gently and the waiters wore black bow ties. She felt like a queen in her borrowed heels and fake designer bag, even if she kept worrying he would see through her pretense. But Kelvin didn't care. He ordered peppered snails and cocktails without checking the price. And he kept his eyes locked on hers as he spoke about big plans and moving to Lekki. He was smooth, too smooth. When he reached across the table to hold her hand, she felt her chest tighten in anticipation. Joyce, baby, you deserve the world, he whispered, his thumb tracing circles on her wrist. No more stress. No more trekking to class. I can take you away from all this rubbish. She laughed shyly, biting her lip, her mind swimming with images of flights to Dubai, of shopping sprees, of never worrying about her hostel rent again. That night, he drove her back in his Benz, and they sat in the car talking for hours about dreams and fears. When he finally kissed her, it felt like a promise of freedom. After that, it became routine. Kelvin would pick her up after lectures, slipping bundles of cash into her bag like it was nothing. He bought her a new phone, paid her department fees without blinking. In return, Joyce found herself bending little rules she once thought sacred. She stopped going to fellowship, telling her leader she was too busy. She skipped classes to go shopping in Lagos. When her mother called to ask why she hadn't been calling home for her needs as usual, Joyce got irritated. Why should she be bothered when she was finally enjoying life? All the while, Kelvin smiled. That predator smile, watching her transform from diligent student to his pampered plaything, it wasn't as though no one tried to stop her. Daniel, bless his patient soul, refused to give up even after she blocked him. He sent her emails, which she didn't open at first. But one evening, in a moment of guilt, she read one. Joyce, please. I know you think I'm judging you. I'm not. I just want you to be safe. That guy is not clean. I heard rumors about him in town. He's not just Yahoo. They say he's into rituals. He's dangerous. I know you think I'm jealous or poor. But I'd rather you hate me and stay alive than lose you. Please, pray about this. Don't let greed blind you. She deleted the email and scoffed. But it's down. Later, when Kelvin was in the shower, she tried to raise it carefully. Babe, people are saying rubbish about you. Ritual this, ritual that. Kelvin had burst out laughing, water dripping off his muscular shoulders. Joyce, I beg. Don't tell me you believe that village nonsense. You think people will see a young hustler like me making money and not talk? They want us poor and begging. Forget them, dear. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him. Or at least, she convinced herself she did. But the seed of fear had been planted. Kelvin noticed her hesitation. He started getting more controlling. He changed the passwords on her phone for security, refused to let her visit her hostel alone, and deleted any male contacts he didn't like. When Daniel once approached her at the school gate, Kelvin's boys appeared from nowhere and roughed him up, warning him never to come near Madam Kelvin again. Joyce felt a strange mix of flattery and terror. She told herself it was just love. Obsession, after all, was proof of how much he wanted her. Or so she told herself, as she sank deeper into his web. By the middle of the semester, Joyce was unrecognizable. Gone was the slim, modestly dressed girl in campus-approved skirts and plain tops. She was now decked in Brazilian hair, designer bags, and tight jeans that hugged her figure. She wore lashes so long they brushed her eyebrows and nails sharp enough to be weapons. She became the envy of her classmates, who whispered behind her back but added her on Snapchat to watch her lavish updates. Her academics suffered. At first she tried to keep up, but it became too hard. Kelvin would plan impromptu trips to Lagos or take her to clubs on nights before tests. She began missing classes altogether, always sick or busy. When lecturers tried to call her in for mandatory assessments, she ignored them. Her GPA, once a proud 4.2, began slipping like a goat on oil. But she didn't care. Kelvin would sort her bills, pay for special exam sittings if necessary. Money would fix everything, she thought. At home, her parents were growing worried. They had noticed the change in tone when she called, the way she sounded distracted and impatient. Once, her mother asked if she was living with a man, and Joyce exploded in fury, telling her to mind her business. She sent money to them sometimes, bigger amounts than expected from a student, that left her mother uneasy. Joyce, this money is too much. Where is it coming from? Her mother asked. Joyce snapped, Mommy, are you praying for me to be poor forever? And so the gap widened. Her old friends fell away. Daniel stopped trying after one last humiliating beating from Kelvin's boys. And Joyce, queen of the Yahoo boys' palace, convinced herself she had everything she ever wanted. For a while, life was sweet. Kelvin spared no expense on his queen. He bought her an iPhone 15 Pro Max, brand new in the box. He paid for her to go to a luxury spa in Abuja. He even put money down for a small car, promising to teach her to drive. She started posting motivational quotes about God's blessings and hustle hard while conveniently ignoring the source of the wealth. They rented a shortlet apartment in a high-rise building with 24-hour power and a pool. Joyce posed by the pool in bikinis she would never have dreamed of wearing back home. She drank expensive wines whose names she couldn't pronounce. Every time she began to feel guilt gnawed at her, she told herself she deserved it. She had suffered enough, but the cracks were there if you looked closely. Kelvin's temper was quick to flare. If she wore something he didn't approve of, he would hurl insults, calling her a cheap slut before handing her a stack of cash to buy something more respectable. He forbade her from making friends in the complex. "I don't want you talking to broke people who poison your mind," he said. She would cry sometimes in the bathroom, but wipe her tears and come out smiling for his sake. Worst of all were the nights he would come home smelling of blood and strange herbs, lying that he'd had to settle some apparos. Once, she woke up at 2 a.m. to find him kneeling on a black mat, candles burning low, chanting words that made her skin crawl. She asked about it. He smiled thinly. "If you want this soft life, you learn to ignore certain things." Joyce said nothing. She went back to bed and told herself it was normal. It started with small things. Strange shadows in the corners of their room. Whispers in the dark that stopped when she turned on the light. Joyce dismissed them at first. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe Kelvin's erratic sleep schedule was messing with hers, but the nightmares became undeniable. She dreamed of a dark river where women screamed as they were dragged under by red-eyed men. She dreamed of herself tied naked to a post while a masked figure chanted over her. She woke up drenched in sweat, heart racing. Kelvin was no comfort. Whenever she tried to tell him, he got irritated. "Joyce, I beg. Don't bring your village spirit here. Go and pray if you want." He refused to listen. Worse, sometimes she woke to find him standing over her in the dark, watching her sleep with blank eyes. When she cried and asked what he was doing, he just smiled coldly and lay back down. She began avoiding sleep altogether. She stayed up watching TV on mute or scrolling Instagram mindlessly. But exhaustion always won. And the dreams got worse. In one, she saw Daniel standing outside the gate, shouting for her to come out while blood poured from his eyes. She woke screaming, only to find Kelvin shaking her violently. "You dey craze. You want neighbors to hear. Shut up." He slapped her once, hard, and she fell silent, sobbing. He held her after, apologizing, pressing wads of cash into her palm as if money could erase terror. Joyce's world shrank until it was just Kelvin and the apartment. He refused to let her return to campus except for the rare exam she barely attempted. Her hostel bed was claimed by someone else. Her department wrote her a warning letter about expulsion, which she crumpled up and threw away. He cut her off from her family. When her mother called, he would snatch the phone and hang up. "They want to spoil you for me," he said. When her father tried visiting the city to see her, Kelvin sent boys to scare him away from the gate. Joyce watched through the window, tears streaming down her face, as her father turned and left, defeated. She didn't even realize how alone she was. She convinced herself it was love. "He just doesn't want to share me," she told herself. "That's how you know a man cares." She repeated the words like a charm while deleting messages from old friends, ignoring calls from fellowship members who pleaded with her to come back to church, but in quiet moments, when Kelvin was gone for days on business, leaving her without even airtime, she felt the cold. She sat by the window, hugging her knees, wondering how a girl with dreams of graduating with honors had become a caged bird. But whenever she thought of leaving, she remembered the beatings, the threats, and the promises of finishing her family. So she stayed. One night, Joyce woke up to the smell of something foul. Rotten eggs mixed with metal. She sat up and realized the candles were back. Kelvin was squatting on the floor in his black wrapper, chanting in a language she didn't understand, but this time it was different. There was a small pot in front of him, and he was tossing in items one by one. Her earrings. A lock of her hair. A blood-soaked cloth that made her stomach turn. Kelvin, what are you doing? She screamed. He turned slowly, his eyes glassy. Sit down. She shook her head, trembling. Kelvin, please, I'm scared. Let me go. Please. He lunged at her, grabbing her by the neck. I said sit down. He roared. He forced her onto the floor beside the pot. She sobbed as he chanted louder, spitting on the flames until they turned green. He cut his own arm and let the blood drip in. Then he forced her palm open, slicing it with a razor. She shrieked as blood poured into the pot. Kelvin, please, stop. I don't want this. Please. But he ignored her cries. His face was wild, his eyes rolled back in ecstasy. She realized, too late, that the rumors were true. He wasn't just a Yahoo boy. He was a ritualist. And she was the sacrifice. Joyce was never the same after that night. She stopped talking for days, her voice stuck in her throat from screaming. When she did speak, it was in whispers, as if afraid the walls would listen. Kelvin acted like nothing had happened. He tried to kiss her one morning, and when she recoiled, he slapped her so hard she tasted blood. He brought her gifts to apologize, a new wig, 100K in cash. She pushed them away. He got angrier. He began locking her inside the apartment when he left, taking the keys with him. The once luxury suite became a prison. She stopped eating. When she caught her reflection in the mirror, she didn't recognize the sunken eyes, the cracked lips. The lost girl staring back. At night, the nightmares became visions. Awake, she saw women standing in the corners of the room, crying blood. She heard whispers in languages she didn't know. She begged Kelvin to get her help. He just shook his head. You're mine now. That's the deal. When she screamed and tried to claw her way out the door, he beat her so badly she lay curled on the floor for hours, too bruised to move, and then, worse than pain, came numbness. She stopped crying. Stopped fighting. She sat for hours at the window, rocking back and forth. She soiled herself because he wouldn't unlock the bathroom in time. She barely noticed. He would call her my queen one moment, my witch the next. And Joyce no longer had the will to answer either name. It didn't take long for people to notice something was wrong. Neighbors in the building heard her screaming at night. They complained to management about the possessed girl upstairs. Rumors spread. Some said Kelvin was beating her. Others whispered darker things, that she was his ritual sacrifice, that she was no longer fully human. When Kelvin couldn't handle her anymore, he took her back to campus one day and dumped her at the main gate. She stumbled in barefoot, wearing only an oversized t-shirt. She was talking to herself, shouting at invisible enemies, cursing in languages she never learned. Students gathered around. Some recording videos for TikTok. Is that not Joyce? Oh, fine girl where they follow big boys. She don't craze. Oh, a lecturer tried to approach her. She threw sand at him, shrieking. Campus security tried to restrain her. She beat one officer's hand so badly he bled. Finally, they sedated her and took her to the campus clinic. The doctor called her parents. When her mother arrived and saw her only daughter strapped to a hospital bed, drooling, eyes vacant, she fainted. Her father just stood there, shaking his head, tears rolling down his face. He remembered the bright-eyed girl who promised to buy them a house. The girl who now couldn't recognize him. The university didn't know what to do with Joyce. She was disruptive, violent when untreated, and her academic record had become a disaster. She hadn't completed most of her courses. She was on probation already. After months of her parents begging and bribing, the school finally sent an official letter. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Ago, we regret to inform you that your daughter Joyce Ago has been withdrawn from our university on grounds of academic failure and mental health concerns beyond the scope of our care. Her mother wept over the letter for days. Her father blamed himself. But the truth was, there was no money left. They had used everything to try prayer houses, traditional healers, hospitals. Nothing worked. Each promised total healing for a fee. Each failed. Meanwhile, Kelvin didn't even attend the expulsion hearing. He was busy buying another car. When asked about her, he reportedly laughed. Which Joyce? I beg, I no get time for mad people. She was disposable now. Her purpose served. Her blood bought him new contracts. He posted a photo on Instagram of his new Benz with the caption, God no go shame us. Joyce became a ghost of herself. Her family tried to take her home to the village, but she escaped one night, barefoot, in the rain. She wandered the streets of Benin, dirty and starving. People avoided her because she talked to herself, sometimes screaming, sometimes laughing. She slept under shop awnings, begged for scraps, some recognized her. They whispered, "Not that girl where they follow Yahoo boys for school. See now." One day, Daniel saw her. He had graduated and was working in an oil refining company where he had served as a copper the previous year, but had come back for a program. He didn't recognize her at first. She was too thin, her hair matted, her clothes filthy. When he realized who it was, he cried on the street. He tried to hug her. He shoved him away. Screaming about blood, about snakes, about people wanting to eat her soul, Daniel didn't give up. He called her parents. He paid for her care. But she would always run away from the hospital. They want to kill me, she would shriek. In her mind, everyone was Kelvin. Everyone was the masked figure in her dreams. Rumors about Kelvin finally boiled over. One of his former friends got arrested for fraud and, desperate to cut a plea deal, confessed everything. He told police about the rituals, about the women, about how Kelvin had offered girlfriends in exchange for power and protection. The story spread fast. Newspapers hinted at it without listing names. Blogs picked it up and posted blurry pictures of Kelvin's parties. He denied it all, of course. He threatened to sue for defamation. But people talked. Some girls who had dated him in the past came forward anonymously, saying they had escaped only because their families dragged them away in time. A few mentioned strange sicknesses. One claimed she couldn't have children anymore, and everyone remembered Joyce, the mad girl by the gate. The sacrifice who didn't die but lost everything else. Kelvin's wealth didn't last. The same way he rose, he fell. His spiritual protection began to fail. Scammers turned on him. His bank accounts were frozen during an EFCC investigation. He fled to Ghana for a while but got robbed there. He returned poorer, angrier. He moved into a smaller apartment, sold 2 of his cars. Even the new girlfriends who had lined up for his money scattered when the money dried up. He was seen drunk in a bar one night, cursing God, cursing Nigeria, cursing Joyce for bringing him bad luck. But Joyce didn't even know. She no longer had the capacity to care. She sat outside campus gates sometimes, asking students for coins, laughing manically when they gave her anything. If anyone asked her name, she'd say, "I'm the queen. Queen of blood." And then she'd start crying. Her parents finally stopped trying to fix her. They took her back to the village and kept her locked in a small room. Her mother bathed her daily, humming hymns through tears. Her father stopped speaking altogether, staring at the ground whenever anyone asked about her. Years later, people still told her story. Freshers on campus heard it as a cautionary tale. Don't follow Yahoo boys. Oh. You fit end up like Joyce. Even lecturers mentioned it when warning about dangers of greed. Daniel sometimes visited her family in the village. He would sit outside her locked room and pray for hours. He didn't care that she didn't recognize him anymore. He believed God could still heal her. But he also warned the students he mentored, the devil pays. But he collects with interest. As for Joyce, she was alive, but not living. She had lost her sanity, her education, her womanhood. The bright future she once dreamed of was gone, snuffed out in exchange for short-lived luxury. She muttered to herself about blood and fire, never able to forget what she had seen, and Kelvin. He was a ghost in Lagos slums, muttering about glory days, reduced to borrowing money for cigarettes and beer. His kingdom had crumbled. His friends gone. No ritual could save him from ruin. In the end, the story of Joyce was a summary to one truth: not all that glitters is gold. And sometimes, the price of fast wealth is everything you have, even your soul.